The Dirt with me, Mike Howell, an economics podcast where I present the down and dirty agronomic science to help grow crops and bottom lines. Inspired by eKonomics.com, farming's go-to informational resource, I'm here to break down the latest crop nutrition research, news, and issues, helping farmers make better business decisions through actionable insights. Let's dig in. Welcome back to The Dirt, everyone. This is Mike Howell. Glad you're tuning in again this week. We've got another exciting episode for you this week, a little bit different than what we usually do. I'm excited to let you know that eKonomics has partnered with an interesting group here in the upper Midwest called Grand Farm. Grand Farm is a research initiative that's designed to inspire collaboration among different businesses, organizations, and researchers to develop the future farm. We believe that this is going to solve issues critical to farmers worldwide. To join me today and help me talk a little bit about the Grand Farm is Andrew Jason. He's Grand Farm's ecosystem director. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
Andrew, if you would, before we get started, tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and what you do.
I'm a pretty typical story when it comes to agriculture these days, generation removed. So my experience with ag was kind of going to visit my grandparents' farm and sitting on my great uncle's knee as he was driving and planting and things like that. Northern Minnesota boy, grew up in a small town, came to the Fargo-Moorhead region for school. And right out of school, I got a lucky break joining a publishing company. So my background is media. So I was with this company for about 10 years, kind of working in different ways, telling stories, marketing, things like that. And then when the Grand Farm Initiative was getting started about 4 years ago, I got so excited about this mission about advancing technology in agriculture, exciting the next generation of agriculturalists, that I had to jump ship and join the team here. Kind of how I'm sure we'll get into this, but I love the story of ag and want to help tell the story of the future of ag and where we're going with that. And so that's kind of how I always approach things, is from a storytelling, marketing, media perspective.
Andrew, if you will, tell us a little more about Grand Farm and why it was created.
Grand Farm was really kind of born out of the thesis that every community needs to declare a major about what are you the best in the world at. So a local entrepreneur by the name of Barry Batchelor, he's kind of one of those long-standing visionary types, started a company called Phoenix International that got acquired by John Deere, started a company called Apario that just got acquired by AGCO, kind of one of those guys. He, at one of our events, spoke about the Silicon Valley story. And, for anybody that knows that or it doesn't know it, basically it was started by Fairchild Lab, was started in kind of the Silicon Valley area in the 50s. Middle of farm fields, nothing going on there. But then that success begets other success. So there was a group called the Treacherous Eight that spun out of that company. They started to form other companies, and that region and that ecosystem kept growing. So when he challenged us to think about what's our region's major, what can be the best in the world at, we looked at the history when it came to the bonanza farms that were here in the late 1800s, these 100,000 acre farms that used innovative technology for the day. The story of Bobcat being founded here when a turkey farmer was sick and tired of shoveling out the manure, so he invented the skid steer tractor. That got started here. So taking that kind of history of innovation, we decided to declare, well, our advanced technologies in agriculture can be the best in the world. And that's kind of where the Grand Farm was born out of, is how do we create this research and demonstration initiative to promote what's happening and starting to attract and accelerate some of that technology.
We're all about innovation, and we like to do anything we can to promote innovation and come up with new products of our own. And we'll talk a little bit more about some of the stuff that we're going to be doing with Grand Farm in the field this year. Grand Farm is focused on innovation, and that's always been the backbone of farming. As far back as you want to go, somebody is always creating something else to make farming easier. What do you see as the biggest innovations going on in agriculture today?
When we think about kind of innovation in agriculture, we kind of think about how, and I like to kind of use metaphors and think about, we're at a table right here. Who do you need around these tables to get kind of innovation to happen? And so we think about kind of key groups that we want to bring to the table. It's, the corporates, large organizations like Nutrien, the startups, the education groups, specifically the researchers at academia, the policymakers, and finally the growers. So making sure that those growers' voices are kind of at the center and being heard. So that's kind of like our philosophical idea of how we can advance technology in agriculture. But, then kind of specifically to your point of how, some of these innovative things right now, autonomy is obviously the sexy thing I would describe it as. But as far as what actual problems that those are going to solve from a grower standpoint, I'm a little hesitant about like the autonomous farm is not going to be happening in anybody's anytime soon here. But I think from, a biologic standpoint, kind of the regenerative ag aspect is super interesting to me. The other thing that has big applications, both good and potentially bad. I think that you're going to be seeing over the next decade is artificial intelligence and kind of the machine learning aspect of it. So, we have our big Cultivate conference tomorrow. We're going to be leading a workshop around what are the applications of artificial intelligence in agriculture.
Yeah, I'm excited to go to that and see what I can learn from that. That's groundbreaking technology, and I'm just not as up on it as I need to be. So hopefully, I can learn something on that tomorrow.
Yeah, well, it's changing so much. I don't think anybody's up to
Yeah,
speed on it.
that's right. You mentioned that you're partnering with educational organizations like North Dakota State University and some of the land grant universities. Which land grant universities are you working with?
We work primarily with North Dakota State University. They're kind of in our bread and butter, right backyard here. But we're starting to get these other kind of regional collaborations that we do. University of Minnesota, even like down south, University of Georgia, closer to your land. The ways that we collaborate is kind of in a couple of ways. One, how can we foster these relationships between the faculty that are doing the research and industry? We do a lot of like programming to bring faculty and industry together. Two is how can we provide an actual physical site where faculty can test their demonstration? Like a good example is we work with Dr. Rex Soon out at NDSU. He is developing a weeding robot, which autonomous weeding is a hot topic, and if somebody can crack that, that's a big market. So he's doing a lot of academic research from that. So we work with him where we just have weed plots at our farm. A lot of people show up and like, "Why do you have weeds?" And
Well, if you need another location for that research, you can come down to my farm. I've got plenty of weeds he can work on. So.
Great. Well, we'll be down there with Rex. And then the third one is really kind of around the internship. So how can we get these students placed in a real kind of world environment with industry? So some of the things that we've done is we've had actual interns be placed with some of the partners that we're working with in our actual farm site, things like that.
We've mentioned that Grand Farm is headquartered here in Fargo, North Dakota. The Innovation Center is just a short drive out to the west of town. I actually got to go out there and visit this morning. Looks like there's quite some big plans going on out there. They told us about some of the infrastructure that they're going to be building in the next year or two. Can you elaborate on that infrastructure a little bit?
We always kind of envisioned that we needed a physical environment to bring these partners, these groups together. We have acquired 140 acres that's just west of Fargo that we're turning into an innovation campus. Our first building is going to be innovation shop. So it's going to be about 24,000 square feet, and it's going to be designed around 3 use cases. So actually shop space where our partners can work on their equipment. In the middle, we'll have boardrooms, classrooms, spaces to bring players together in a private meeting space or education groups. We're going to be doing a lot more with K through 12 as we build this out. And then the third use case will be for events programming, both in an indoor and an outdoor amphitheater style. The whole campus is designed around kind of experiences where we can host our partners. They can have their plots, kind of like we're doing with you all. And then, there can be kind of like takeover days where, there'd be the Nutrien day where you could do your customer events, or you could host, live recordings of the podcast or whatever you might want to do out there. And the other thing that we're really excited about turning into these plots is from an experience standpoint is around some of these hot topics in agriculture. So as we build this out, we'll have the weed plot where we'll just be testing out different autonomous weeding. One of the plots that we have out the farm this year is going to be around data collection and building out this concept of how do you build out these digital twins in ag.
Well, one thing that really excited me that you just mentioned there was you're working with with the school groups,
Hmm.
kindergarten through 12th grade, and
Yeah.
I think that's vital. That's how we get children interested in agriculture, and
Hmm.
everywhere I go, we're constantly looking for the next agricultural leaders, and it's getting harder and harder to find people that want to focus in agriculture and
Yeah.
go to school and learn about what we're doing. So
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's kind of one of the things is, this is not news to you or any of your listeners, but farms are getting bigger, farm families are getting smaller, there's just less farm kids. So we need a net new migration of people interested in ag that have no experience in ag. So how do you from a kind of a storytelling, kind of marketing standpoint, get that message about what ag is actually out there? And I kind of half jokingly refer to it as like, how do we get these nerds excited about ag from a technology standpoint? I think that's where we can really tie into that.
So we've mentioned that this is located just west of Fargo here in the Red River Valley. Why Fargo? Why did you want to put it here in the Red River Valley? What's that valley offer that other places wouldn't offer?
I think it's going back to that history, right? The Bonanza Farms 130 years ago, Bobcat being founded here, John Deere, AGCO, RDO, Titan. They all have extremely large presences here or are headquartered here. So it's kind of building off of that history. It's like the success begets success. And then the other big piece of it is we have innovative farms, right? We're blessed
Mhm.
with rich soil. Things grow really well here. We have farmers that are willing to adopt new technology. Sugar beets are big here, and that's a whole nother industry that is ripe for innovation and has a lot of success. So it's kind of building off of what the industry has created, but probably even more importantly, what the farmers themselves have created.
We've kind of brushed around this topic a little bit, but the world production systems are constantly having to think about sustainability and how to be more sustainable in agriculture and greater food security. And space science is kind of out there these days.
Yeah.
People are talking about maybe farming on Mars at some point in the future. And I understand that Grand Farm does a space conference every year. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how far is it going to be before we're actually growing crops on Mars?
Yeah, space ag conference, even more niche than that. When we launched this idea, it's like, how do you create this mission or this idea kind of around like JFK's moonshot idea, right? Let's put a man on the moon in 10 years. We're not doing anything as ambitious as that, but we need to advance and think through this. And so we launched this conference about 4 years ago now. Somebody with an at nasa.gov email reached out to me just wanting to collaborate or about something. And I was like, oh, this is cool. NASA, great. So I was like, hey, would you ever be interested in doing a Farming on Mars just webinar? This was kind of at the start of COVID. We were trying to figure things out and just doing a bunch of weird things. And we had 60 entrepreneurs that showed up down there. There was 2 billionaires that were on this call. And they're like, all right, there's some interest there. So we launched this conference about 4 years ago. And there's kind of three goals with it that I think tie into your question there. And the first and foremost is, for those that have been following, is we have a permanent presence in space with the International Space Station, but we're going to have a permanent presence on the moon in 5 years or so, permanent presence on Mars in 10 years. How are we going to feed that population? But then also, even more importantly, how does that technology directly impact Earth, right? So, if you can figure out how to farm on the moon or Mars where there's zero gravity, really awful soil, you can't bring a bunch of fertilizer, things like that up there, that's going to have direct impacts to what we're doing on Earth. The second one is to explore how space technology is impacting ag. The obvious one is satellites, right? Ag has been a leader when it comes to satellite technology for decades now. But there's other interesting use cases. So hydroponics, when like controlled environment ag, that was developed by NASA. And the other one that I find pretty interesting is you can do a lot of interesting things with seed breeding research by sending these seeds up to space. It does being in zero gravity unlocks lots of interesting pieces. And then the third use case and goal of the conference is education, right? It's how do you excite and delight that next generation of ag? So when we hosted our last one in April, we had 130 students signed up that were going to be doing these workshops where they're going to be planting peas in soil from the moon. University of North Dakota sent seeds. I think they were radish seeds up to space in a high altitude space balloon. So they were going to get these seeds that actually flew to space. The National Center for Autonomous Technology was going to do drone flights and like you were pretend simulation that you were on Mars and needed to do a resupply mission to a supply station. And so it's like, how do you use kind of that space? Because space is cool, right? I really love space. How do you use that to excite the next generation of agriculturalists?
Yeah, the first thing I think about when we started talking about space, we have trouble transporting materials across the country. How in the world are we gonna economically get fertilizer to Mars?
Yeah,
So
exactly. Right. Yeah.
got quite a few details to work out in that. So Andrew, another thing that I kind of want to talk about a little bit is what we have going on with
Mhm.
Grand Farm this year. We didn't really know a whole lot about it, and we decided to just put in some demonstration plots this year and try to get some customers out and showcase what we're working on. But a couple of the trials that we have out there this year are looking at ESN, our environmentally smart nitrogen. We've got that compared with conventional fertilizer programs on corn, wheat, and soybeans.
Mhm.
We were hoping to get sugar beets in there as well, but ran into some issues getting that done. But what other kind of innovation trials and research is going on out there? Anything you can talk about?
There's quite a few. I think we have 8 partners that are out there, ranging from different seed companies to NDSU, doing some of their research, like Dr. Soon that I was talking about with the autonomous weeder. One of the ones that I think is kind of interesting is a Canadian ag tech startup called Susteer. And they basically developed a product that uses high pressure water jets for planting for like no-till purposes. So they are doing some trials and validation of their technology. You probably saw the equipment out at the farm if you're out there this morning. But it's kind of like that idea is how can you use these to showcase technology or whether it's validation, kind of like Susteer's doing. They got a new product, they need to prove it works. Demonstration plots like you all are doing, or some of the other ones that we work with partners on is they're interested in kind of deploying technology on there, either from to see if it works for their standpoint, like different sensors, things like that, or for demonstration purposes and collaboration kind of with these startups.
Okay, well, Andrew, we sure appreciate you taking time to come visit with us today and let everybody know about Grand Farm and what's going on out there. Did we miss anything? Any take home message that you want to leave our listeners with?
One, I gotta, we're all we do is in partnership and collaboration with our partners, right? You all are one of them. We have about 70 partners from around the world that we work with. So we gotta always thank them and the work they're doing. I invite people. We'll be hosting events, field days, large conferences, small meetups throughout the summer. So follow us on social media or grandfarm.com, and we'd love to host you.
Thanks a lot, Andrew. Listeners, well, we appreciate you tuning in. And as you know, it's time for our second segment today where we talk about somebody famous in the world of agriculture. We've been talking a lot about innovation today, and the person that we're going to talk about today has definitely done some great innovation during his lifetime. Today, we want to focus on Henry Wallace. He was an American politician, a journalist, a farmer, and a businessman that was born in Orient, Iowa. He was particularly interested in corn as a youngster, and because that was one of Iowa's key crops, at the age of 18, he developed an experiment that disproved agronomists' theories that the most aesthetically pleasing corn was also going to produce the highest yields. He specialized in animal husbandry when he got to college, and still liked to study corn in his free time. About the time that he was going through college, the world was looking to increase corn yields. In 1923, he reached the first ever contract for hybrid seed production, agreeing to let the Iowa Seed Company have the sole rights to grow a hybrid corn that he had developed called Copper Cross corn. The Iowa Seed Company started selling this corn seed, and later a group of businessmen and Wallace got together and founded Hybrid Corn Company, which later turned into Pioneer Hybrid International. Wallace had been experimenting with the hybridization of corn and became convinced that hybrid corn seed was going to be important. I don't think he even had an idea how important hybrid corn was going to be. He also did a lot of work in politics over his career. He was also part of his family newspaper that was called the Wallace Farmer. He served as a writer on that newspaper until his uncle lost the paper in 1933 during the Great Depression. But the paper is still around today, and it goes by a different name. It's called Farm Progress today, something that a lot of people still take a look at every day. So, listeners, we really appreciate you tuning in today. For more information on any of the topics that we talk about here on The Dirt, you can visit our website at nutrien-economics.com. Until next time, this has been Mike Howell with The Dirt.